The maid was mocked by engineers. When she said the elevator didn't need new parts, 10 minutes later, they were speechless. Maria pulled her cleaning cart into the service elevator of the Westbridge Tower, her shoulders aching from 6 hours of scrubbing luxury condos. The fluorescent lights flickered above her, casting harsh shadows across her weathered face. She'd been cleaning these same floors for 12 years now, long enough to know every creak, hum, and mechanical sigh of the building. "Hold the doors!" A man in a crisp grey suit rushed in, followed by 3 others wearing blue coveralls with the Elevate Mechanics logo embroidered on their chests. Maria recognized the suit immediately. Mr. Harrington, the building manager, always smelling of expensive cologne that gave her headaches. She pressed herself against the wall, making herself smaller as they crowded the space. "4th floor, gentlemen. I've gathered the Residents' Association there. They're not happy about another repair so soon after the last one." The tallest mechanic, a red-faced man with salt and pepper hair, grunted. "Can't be helped. This model has a design flaw in the primary tension system. We've been seeing it in buildings all over the city." Maria felt her heart rate quicken. She'd noticed something about this elevator 2 days ago, a rhythm in its descent that felt different but not broken. Before she could stop herself, words escaped her lips. "Excuse me, but I don't think it's the tension system." 4 heads swiveled toward her, eyes widening as if noticing her for the first time. Mr. Harrington's face tightened with annoyance. "Maria, please. These men are certified elevator technicians." The red-faced mechanic snorted. "Yeah, lady. I've been fixing elevators since before you were cleaning toilets." His colleagues chuckled, and Maria felt heat rise to her cheeks. She lowered her eyes to the floor but couldn't shake what she knew in her bones. "It's the counterweight track. There's something caught in it. The elevator doesn't make the right sound when it passes the 6th floor. The mechanics exchanged amused glances. "The right sound? Well, excuse us for bringing tools instead of a symphony orchestra." More laughter filled the small space as the elevator doors opened to the 4th floor. The men stepped out, leaving Maria alone with her cart and burning humiliation. The youngest mechanic, barely 25, glanced back at her with something like curiosity before the doors closed. Maria pressed the button for the 8th floor, her hands trembling slightly. In her country, before she'd come to America, her father had maintained elevators at the government building. For 5 years, she'd followed him after school, learning to diagnose problems by sound and vibration. But that was another life, one that felt increasingly distant with each passing year. She pushed her cart into the corridor of the 8th floor, trying to focus on her work. But her mind kept returning to the counterweight track and the mocking laughter of men who saw only her uniform, not her knowledge. 20 minutes later, Maria was spraying glass cleaner on the windows of apartment 814 when her phone buzzed. It was a text from Consuela, who cleaned the lower floors. "Manager looking for you. Seems important." Maria's stomach tightened. Had Mr. Harrington been offended by her speaking up? Was this finally the end of her job? With 3 children to support and rent due next week, she couldn't afford to lose this position. She quickly gathered her supplies and headed for the service elevator. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, she found an unusual scene. The resident association members stood in a semicircle around the open elevator shaft where the mechanics had removed the control panel. Mr. Harrington paced nervously while the 3 mechanics huddled in urgent conversation, their faces grave. "There she is," said Mr. Harrington, spotting Maria as she stepped cautiously from the elevator. The red-faced mechanic looked up, his expression unreadable. The Resident Association president, Mrs. Whitman, a thin woman with jewelry that cost more than Maria's yearly salary, stepped forward. "Is this the cleaning lady who told you about the counterweight?" Mr. Harrington nodded stiffly. The youngest mechanic broke away from his colleagues and approached Maria, respect evident in his posture. "Ma'am, would you mind explaining exactly what you noticed about the elevator?" Maria swallowed hard, feeling all eyes on her. "2 days ago, I noticed a change when the elevator passes the 6th floor. There's usually a smooth whoosh sound from the counterweight, but now there's a slight catch in the rhythm, like something is hitting the track for just a moment." The mechanic nodded. "And you're certain it's at the 6th floor?" "Yes, always in the same spot." The older mechanic stepped forward, his earlier condescension replaced with reluctant curiosity. "Johnson, get the inspection camera ready. We're going to check the counterweight track at level 6. For the next several minutes, Maria watched as they lowered a small camera down the shaft. The residents whispered among themselves, occasionally glancing at her with expressions ranging from skepticism to intrigue. "Mr." Harrington continued pacing, checking his watch repeatedly. "This repair is costing the association $14,000, Mrs." Whitman said loudly. "If we're wasting time on a wild goose chase because of a hunch from the cleaning staff—" "I've got something," the youngest mechanic interrupted, staring at a small screen attached to the camera. Everyone crowded around the screen, though Maria stayed back, uncertain of her place in this gathering. The red-faced mechanic let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned." He looked up at Maria, genuine surprise in his eyes. "You were right. There's something wedged in the counterweight track at exactly the 6th floor. Looks like a broken piece of metal that's snagging the guide shoe every time the counterweight passes." The third mechanic, who hadn't spoken until now, shook his head in disbelief. "That's not a tension system issue at all. It's just debris in the track. Probably happened during the renovation on 6 last month. A simple removal job, not a full system replacement." Mrs. Whitman's eyes widened. "And what would that cost to fix?" The mechanics exchanged glances. "About $800 for our time today. No parts needed." The resident association members broke into excited chatter. Mrs. Whitman turned to Maria, seeing her, truly seeing her, for perhaps the first time. "How did you know?" Maria thought of her father, his calloused hands guiding hers as they felt the vibrations of machinery, teaching her to listen to what metal and motors were saying. Sometimes you just have to listen to what the building is telling you. Within the hour, the mechanics had removed the debris from the counterweight track. Maria stood apart from the group, watching as they tested the elevator, its movement now perfectly smooth as it passed the 6th floor. The residents were elated at saving thousands of dollars, and Mr. Harrington seemed torn between relief at the simple solution and embarrassment at how Maria had been treated. The red-faced mechanic approached her as his colleagues packed up their tools. "I owe you an apology, ma'am. I was out of line earlier." Maria nodded, accepting his words with quiet dignity. "Where did you learn about elevators?" he asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "My father maintained them in Bogotá. Government buildings, hotels. I helped him after school." "You've got a good ear. That's something you can't learn from a manual." He hesitated, then pulled a business card from his pocket. "Elevate Mechanics is short-staffed. We need people with diagnostic skills like yours. The pay is better than cleaning, and we provide training." Maria stared at the card, her mind racing. Better pay would mean her oldest daughter could accept her college admission without crushing student loans. But learning new technical vocabulary in English, working in a field dominated by men who had just mocked her, I don't know. Just think about it. Ask for Ray when you call. That's me. As he walked away, Maria noticed Mrs. Whitman approaching with several other association members. "The association would like to thank you properly," she said, her haughty demeanor now replaced with something like respect. "We've taken up a collection. It's not much, but we want you to know how much we appreciate you saving us from an unnecessary expense." She handed Maria an envelope. Later, in the privacy of the service hallway, Maria would open it to find $600 in cash, nearly a week's wages. But more meaningful than the money was the note attached. "Thank you for reminding us to listen. The residents of Westbridge Tower." As the day continued, Maria found herself the subject of attention from residents who had previously looked through her as if she were invisible. Some stopped to thank her personally. Others asked her name for the first time in years of her cleaning their homes. The shift in how they saw her was both gratifying and uncomfortable. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, just shared knowledge she'd always had. Knowledge that had always been dismissed because of her uniform, her accent, her position. That evening, as she rode the bus home to her small apartment in Queens, Maria turned Ray's business card over in her fingers, considering possibilities that had seemed closed to her for so long. Her phone buzzed with a text from her oldest daughter, Lucia. "Mom, did something happen at work? Mrs. Whitman from 922 just called the house looking for you. Said she wants to talk about an opportunity." Maria smiled, thinking of the quiet, shy girl who cleaned the Whitman apartment on Thursdays, Mrs. Whitman's niece, who was studying engineering at City College and working part-time to help with expenses. Perhaps the world was opening up, not just for Maria, but for connections between people who had previously existed in parallel universes within the same building. 3 weeks later, Maria stood in the service elevator of the Westbridge Tower, but everything was different. Instead of her cleaning cart, she carried a tablet with elevator schematics. Instead of her cleaning uniform, she wore blue coveralls with an Elevate Mechanics trainee badge. And instead of riding alone, she stood beside Ray and the young mechanic, whose name she now knew was Daniel. "Remember, this is just an observation day," Ray said as they ascended. "You don't start the official training program until next week." Maria nodded, still hardly believing the turn her life had taken. After careful consideration and long family discussions, she had accepted Ray's offer. Mrs. Whitman had sweetened the deal by arranging a part-time position for Lucia, who was thrilled to earn money while gaining experience relevant to her engineering studies. "I never would have connected my niece with your daughter if you hadn't spoken up that day," Mrs. Whitman had told her. "Sometimes we need to be reminded to see the people around us." The elevator stopped at the 19th floor, where they were scheduled to perform regular maintenance. As they stepped out, Maria was startled to see Mr. Harrington waiting with another man in an expensive suit. "Maria, perfect timing. This is Mr. Delaney, the property developer. He's considering installing our elevator system in his new building in Brooklyn, and I was just telling him about our expert diagnostic team." Maria exchanged a confused glance with Ray, who looked equally surprised. "Mr. Delaney has been having trouble with the elevators in his other properties," Mr. Harrington continued. "Maintenance costs are through the roof because the repair teams can't seem to identify the root causes. Mr. Delaney stepped forward, extending his hand to Maria. "Harrington tells me you diagnosed a problem by sound that 3 certified technicians missed. That's the kind of intuitive understanding we need. Would your company be interested in a maintenance contract for 6 buildings?" Ray straightened his posture, suddenly all business. "We'd certainly be interested in discussing that, sir. Perhaps we could set up a meeting next week." As the men exchanged contact information, Daniel leaned close to Maria. "Did you ever imagine when you got on that elevator 3 weeks ago that you'd end up here?" Maria thought about the strange path that had led to this moment, how one act of courage, speaking up despite the risk of ridicule, had changed everything. Not just for her, but for Lucia, for the residents who now saw their building staff differently, perhaps even for Elevate Mechanics, which stood to gain a valuable new client. "Life is full of unexpected journeys," she said quietly. Sometimes we just need to listen for the right moment to step through the door. That evening, as Maria rode the subway home, her tablet filled with elevator schematics she was studying for her new career, she thought about the countless other people like her, immigrants, service workers, women, whose knowledge and skills went unrecognized because of who they were or what they did for a living. One door had opened for her. Perhaps, in some small way, her story would help open doors for others. In her mind, she could hear her father's voice, proud and clear. Remember, Miha, machines don't care who fixes them. They only know if the hands are skilled and the ears are listening. Maria smiled, feeling the vibrations of the subway car beneath her. She closed her eyes and listened to its rhythms, already diagnosing the slight imbalance in the third wheel assembly. There would always be more to learn, more to fix, more to improve. And now, finally, people were ready to listen.